We go. Good morning, everyone. We are in the 3 weeks, so it's kedai a little bit to talk about the 3 weeks, even though it's Pashas Pinchas. Let's start with this. I read in Rabbi Yaakov Weinberg, Zechron Tzadik Livrocha, wrote a piece on the 3 weeks. And in it, the theme is when Chazal set up this period of time, it's not, it's Torah Shabbat Peh, but it's certainly not Midoraisa. When Chazal set it up, they set it up to be Mekayim, something which the Torah says in a general sense. Hishomer lecha pentishkach v'sadvarim asher ra'u enecha. Hishomer lecha, be careful, shmor nafshecha ma'od, and watch your souls. If you care about your soul, you should remember. Yom asher amadeto lifnei Hashem Elokecha b'chorev, the day that Klal Yisrael stood at Chorev, and you tell it over to your children and grandchildren. Yom asher amadeto lifnei Hashem Elokecha b'chorev. Ma'amad Har Sinai. You should know that the 3 weeks began at Ma'amad Har Sinai. It began on Shivasa B'Tammuz when Moshe Rabbeinu comes down and breaks the luchos. He broke the luchos. So what does that mean? He broke the luchos. Okay, we got another pair of luchos. The Bimkoim is never a Kohen. When they call up a Yisrael Bimkom Kohen, he's not a Kohen. And the second luchos were a Bimkoim. They were not the luchos. For had they been the luchos, we'd be living in a totally different reality. We live in a reality now, a big reality. A reality that is full of sheker. But if we had those luchos, our connection to Torah would have been totally different. We would have been people who had the opportunity to envelop ourselves, into the essence of what Torah is. Torah is Chachmas Elokim. Torah is not just the stories, it's not just the laws, it's not just the depths of the Pilpul, it's not just the Midrashim, it's not the Zohar, it's not that alone. It's far more and far deeper and far more powerful and far more transport us into a totally different state. And of course, we don't have that. But I'd like to share with you something that I heard from Rav Moshe Shapiro, who kind of fuses with what Rav Yaakov said. You see, because Rav Yaakov was telling us that it's like everything else in all of our Avodas Hashem, with all the Yomim Tovim that we go through the year, we go through a sense of oh yeah, Yetzias Mitzrayim, yeah, you have to feel like you just came out of Mitzrayim. How many of us, please, really feel like we came out of Mitzrayim? Every single Yom Tov, every Moed, by the way, the term Moed is in Chumash. That's called the name of the Yomim Tovim are called Moadim, Moed. Moed is what? What the Shorish of Moed is, I'm sure you remember, I've said so many times, is Ya'ad, destiny. Where are you going? That's good. I'm glad you don't remember, because then I can repeat it again. So, a Moed is a Ya'ad. It is Moed, it moves us to our Ya'ad. What's our Ya'ad?
Destiny.
What's our destiny? What's our destiny? Our destiny. Is Moed? No, the Moed is just a mechanism to get us to our destiny. The Yom Tov. That's what the Yom Tov is. By the way, Tisha B'Av is called a Moed. It's called a Moed. And what is Koral Moed says Yirmiyahu Anovi Yenecha. It's a Moed. What does it mean? It's a Moed. It's not it's a Yom Tov. I'm off from work. What's a moed? A moed is to use the Yom Tif, the period, in order to grow and to become more and to reach what we're supposed to be reaching. Mazel tov. And what we're supposed to be reaching. The moed. Let's start at the beginning. The purpose of our 3 weeks is not to remember what happened, but to know and to feel what's going on with us now. What's happening? We're cripples. We don't have the luchos, and we don't even have a Beis Hamikdash, and we don't have any of those things. And even Eretz Yisrael is not run the way it's supposed to be run. So we have to, it has to draw attention to us, not what was, but what is going on now. We don't have any of this. How many of us, really, how many are yearning to bring a carbon, to take an animal, split its throat, and have the blood splatter? Is that something you wish you could do? You don't wish it. Do you know that was the highest level of a Jew reaching out to HaKadosh Baruch Hu? Proclaiming that this is what should be happening to me because I recognize where I'm at and where I'm holding and so on. That's what Rabbi Yaakov said. You know, Rachmana litzlan, a person who's blind, after a period of time, they get used to being blind. And they don't even realize that they can't see anymore. That's where we are. That's us. And we don't realize it. Thank you, Chazal, for giving us these 3 weeks. All the minhagim and everything that we're doing and everything that we say and all the fasting and all the whole process, no haircuts, no simchas, no this, no that, so that we should somehow feel what we're missing. Yeah, that's what we have to focus on. So Reb Moshe Shapiro, Zechron Tzadik Livracha, he pointed out something amazing. We want to know what our yad is. The Rabban Shalom created the universe. He created everything that exists. Everything. From the smallest little subatomic particle to the greatest galaxies to everything. And the core of that creation was with the name Yud K Vav K. The 4-letter ineffable name of God, the 4-letter, the Shem HaMefurash, the Shem HaMeyuchad, that Yud K Vav K. So I'd like to spend just a moment, and this is not the Kabbalah, this is just the basics of basics. What are we talking about when we say Yud K Vav K? We use that term, although it is so holy and so powerful and so much beyond us that we can't even pronounce it. And we pronounce it as Aleph Daled Nun Yud. Adnus, master. He's the master of the world. That's true. He's the master because he's the Yud K Vav K. The Rosh, I think, brings that the name Yud K Vav K is the core name of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And name, by the way, doesn't mean, Sam or Rachel. Or that's not. When we say name is a shame. Shame is there. That's it. There, right there. It's the way HaKadosh Baruch Hu functions in the world, and he has many ways of functioning, and each name has a different idea behind it. Rachamim, Din, and so on. What's the Yud Kei Vav Kei? It's the name, says the Rush, from which all the other names are formatted. So what is the Yud Kei Vav Kei?
Eternity.
Almost, somewhat. Eternity, she said. Somewhat. But it's much more, it has to be expanded. Okay. Let's take the Yud of Yud Kei Vav Kei. The Yud of Yud Kei Vav Kei, Rashi brings on Oz Yashir Moshe, the Yashir, he will. Yashir is Machshava, he says. The Yud represents Machshava, thought. The Yud represents, he thought, of course he thought, what does it mean he thought? Of course he thought, he thought to sing, right? I mean, nobody does anything unless they thought about it. I mean, sometimes we're automatic. And then we become robots. But that's not humanity. Humanity is if you don't think about it, you're not going to do it. I always tell, this is a family thing. I heard from one of my mentors that a little boy, Johnny, comes running home to mommy, and he says, Billy wants to hit me. So she says to him, honey, how do you know Billy wants to hit you? Because he hit me. You don't do anything unless you want it, and your wanting is in your head, in your thoughts. Let's start again. The Yud is always the future. The future is always in Machshava. It's not here yet. The future isn't here. So the Yud represents the goal, the purpose, the whole future that we can't see and we don't know until Hashem gave us two enormous gifts, humanity, two gifts. And those are represented in the two letters Hey of Hashem's name. Yud, Kei, Hey, Vav, Hey. What's a Hey? Anybody remember? We've done that about 50 times. Hey means to give. The letter Hey is a word. In Lashon HaKodesh, you know this, that every letter is not just a representation of a sound like it is in any other language. A bee is not that little insect that drives us crazy. And a C is not the ocean. And a T or Q is not a standing in line. It has none of those meanings. They're just representations of sounds. That's what letters are. In Lashon HaKodesh, every letter is a word. A word has a meaning. The word Hey means to give. Yosef HaTzadik said to the Egyptians after he took everything from them, and they came saying, we got to eat. Hey lachem, I give you seeds. Hey lachem, zera uzratem eso adama. Now go plant it. I'm giving it to you. Hey means to give. That, by the way, just parenthetically, I can't help this. I say it. It just that helps us. How do we represent Hashem when we're writing it out? Because, of course, we can't write it, we can't say it. So how do we represent Hashem? With what letter? With the Hey. Why the Hey? Why not a Pei? Why not a Tzaddik? He's a Tzaddik, no. Why the Hey? Because Hey means to give, and that's all Hashem is giving. All he does is give. He gives and gives and gives. He can't take. What can you give him? You can't give anything to Hashem. He's got it all. He's the creator. So the Hey represents giving. And that's why we do this. He's the giver. He gave us two things. That's why there are two Heys in the Yud Kei Vav Kei. The Pasuk says, Vayitzer Hashem Elokim es ha'adam. And Hashem formed mankind. That includes ladies too. They're not in our generation, not dogs, but only mankind. And the world's trying to make dogs into people, but we're beyond that. Hashem, it says, "Vayitzer Hashem Elokim es Adam," and God formatted mankind. The word "Vayitzer" is written with two yuds. Really, we would write it with one yud. Why do we need two yuds in the word "Vayitzer"? Says Rashi on the spot. Shtei Yitziros. He formatted us for two states. State one is Olam Haba, and state two is Olam Hazeh. So we are entities, and there's your eternity. Olam Haba is eternity. So now let's get to the Yud Kei Vav Kei Hashem. We're at the whole goal, the Moed, the Yad, where we're trying to get what we're trying to get to, what we're trying to achieve, not where. What state are we trying to achieve? We want to achieve Olam Haba. What is Olam Haba? Olam Haba would have been the first Luchos. That's what Olam Haba would have been. We would have gone on for eternity. We would have lived for eternity. We would have been in absolute communion with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. We would have been, Olam Haba is Torah. Olam Haba is Torah. The entire Torah is Olam Haba. What do I mean? Because Chazal tell us what happens in Olam Haba. What do you think we're going to be doing in Olam Haba? Partying? Playing poker? What are we going to do? In Olam Haba is Tzadik Yashvim V'Atoseim V'Neni Mesiv HaShechina, which is represented by the Torah. That's all we have is Torah. The Torah is it. That's reality, the true reality. So he gave us the Yud, the future, the goal, the intention, creation was that there should be Olam Haba, and that's why Adam HaRishon was put into Gan Eden. And in Gan Eden, he was supposed to live forever, that we know, until things deteriorated. So that's the first hay. What is the second hay? The last hay, Olam Hazeh. He gave us this world. So, I mean, why? Why? What was this world, the physical? I don't even want to describe it as to what it has become. But why? Why this world? You know why? Because the only way you're going to get Olam Haba is through Olam Hazeh. You can't get Olam Haba without Olam Hazeh. And that's what he gave us. He gave us both. He gave us it that tied together. So we've got the Yud. That's the intention, the Machshava. The reality is he gave us Olam Haba. He gave us Olam Hazeh. Oh, what's the Vav doing there? The connector. The Yud K, Vav K. The Vav is always, you go into a hardware store, and when you ask for a Vav, what do you get? A hook. What does a hook do? It connects two things together. There is no word for and in Lashon HaKodesh. Only the letter Vav. That's the connecting. So now, when we say Baruch Atah Hashem, we only say Adnus, but we're really referring to the Yud Kei Vav Kei. We have to recognize that he did us such an enormous tova that we could get to the Olam Haba and earn it. To give us Olam Haba and just place us in there, and even Adam HaRishon had to work. It says, La'avdo l'shamra. He put him in Gan Eden, he had to work. What does it mean he had to work? It didn't mean he had to dig ditches. No, Avda means he did all the mitzvahs asay and mitzvahs los asay, l'shamra, losa. That's what he was supposed to do. Did he do it? Not completely. He kind of messed up. But that's what this world is about. This world is to get to Olam Haba, and we're going to get to the Olam Haba only through Olam Hazeh. And that's why it's called Olam Haba. This is Olam Hazeh. So what should that world be? Olam Hahu. No, if this is Olam Hazeh, then that should be Olam Hahu. Why is it Olam Haba? Because it's Olam Haba me'olam hazeh. Do you realize what we've got here? What opportunities we've got as long as we're here? So that's why Tisha B'Av is called a Moed. It's called a Moed because it takes us to our destiny also. It also takes us. Sad, very sad. But if we recognize what we don't have, then we can express how much we really want to have it. And if we do this time to focus on the fact that, yeah, I mean, I really don't feel like making a carbon, but maybe I should. I don't really like the idea, but kanireh, if that's what Hashem wants of Klal Yisrael, and if that's the way and that's what he set up in the whole Beis Hamikdash was the avoda of the karbonos. That's what the Rambam says. The purpose of that was for Klal Yisrael to come together. The purpose of that for Klal Yisrael to come together and to be connected to HaKadosh Baruch Hu and to be karbonos. That was the whole purpose of the Beis Hamikdash. And we are so distant from it. We are so far away, and that's not the only thing we're far away from. We're far away from realizing what we could achieve through Torah. We learn, we talk about it, we give drushes, we give shiurim, we do all kinds of wonderful things, and they're wonderful, that's necessary, and Israel needs to know. But we have to know what it is we're talking about when we say the word Torah. What are we talking about? We were talking about that is the Chachma of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And as a result of our actions, we lost it. We lost it all. We lost the first Beis Hamikdash. And I want to talk a little bit about that. Maybe next week we'll talk about the second Beis Hamikdash more. But let's talk about the first Beis Hamikdash. You know how we lost the first Beis Hamikdash? So there's a Yalkut Shimoni that describes the battle for Yerushalayim and the Beis Hamikdash. And he says like this, there were people in Yerushalayim. We're not the weaklings of today. Today, you got to go to the gym to make yourself strong. How you saw we're born strong. There was one man by the name of Akiva ben Gevatria. What was his name? Akiva ben Gevatria. Akiva said on the wall, when Nebuchadnezzar, now he wasn't he alone, it was his general, Radon, who had catapults. That's what they used to fight with. They were the missiles of those days. And he would sit there, and without a gold dome, he would sit on the wall and catch the gigantic rocks that they threw. And he just threw it back at them. Can you hear? This is Akiva, this is Chazal. It's like like Hanukkah Licht. You got to know that this is the same thing. He would throw the stones back on the Bavlim, cause many casualties. And even sometimes, if he caught one with his hand, he kicked one with the foot. And they tried to throw him off balance. So they threw a lighter stone, so it would get him off balance. And he fell down from the wall. And he climbed right back up. Climbed right back up. They couldn't reach the wall, but he just went up the wall. Then he fought again. Eventually, he was stopped by a Nes. By the way, let me add this point. You know that they could have, from today till tomorrow, they could have been, not even today till tomorrow, from then till today, they could still be throwing stones at Yerushalayim. They wouldn't be able to conquer Yerushalayim if the Shekhinah were there. But the Shekhinah left a long time ago. When did it leave? Way before Nebuchadnezzar, way before that. When? When the Yerushalayim Shalmala, the Beis Hamikdash that was opposite the one down here, the one that's up there, the eternal one, that was destroyed. And what destroyed them? Our Chatoim, That's what destroyed that one. So the minute that one was gone, the only way this one down here could be destroyed is if that one wasn't in existence, i.e., the Shekhinah of Hashem was present in this building. So they tried to throw him off balance and they couldn't do it until there was a nes to stop him because Hashem had to destroy the Beis Hamikdash, or he had to make sure it would be destroyed. So he caused a very, very strong wind to come, a hurricane, I guess. It blew him off the roof and he fell down on his head and he died. Before he was able to go up and down whenever they tried to pick him up, off balance. But all of a sudden there was this one wind. It just flicked him off the wall. That was a nes. We're not finished. Says the Medrash, the Bavlim took 300 mules carrying sledgehammers. 300 mules carrying, all of them were carrying lots and lots of sledgehammers. To what? To break down the walls, to break down the gates. And they were such strong sledgehammers they could go right through iron. But they were totally ineffective. They couldn't do anything. The Gemara says that the assault on just one of the gates of Yerushalayim, they used up their entire supply. That's all brought here by Chazal. Not finished yet. So this was going on for 3.5 years. And Nebuzaradan was about to give up. And he couldn't conquer Yerushalayim, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu was waiting for Klal Yisrael to do tshuva. But in spite of all this, they didn't do tshuva. Do you see? Our lack of tshuva not only caused the destruction, it's keeping it destroyed. So the message was very clear to the Bavlim, to these Babylonians. Your work, your efforts, your intention is futile unless Hashem decides that it should fall. After 3.5 years, Nebuzaradan was ready to concede defeat. He said, hey, there's no way you can destroy Yerushalayim. And a Baskel came out to Nebuzaradan saying, go conquer Yerushalayim. Enough's enough. They're not doing tshuva. Go destroy it. The time for destruction has come, but I decide when it gets destroyed. That was the message. Hashem wanted them to know that only He can bring about the destruction of Yerushalayim, not the general. And then an idea came into his head, and he wanted to measure the walls of Yerushalayim, and he saw that every single day it went down 2.5 tvachim. It was sinking into the ground by 2.5 tvachim every day. So he waited. He waited till it went down all the way, and he and his army walked right through Yerushalayim. These are the testimonies of eyewitnesses. They were there. They saw it. All right, now, yet the Jews didn't do tshuva. Didn't stop there. There were other nisim that were taking place. Yirmiyahu HaNavi, who was the Navi at the time of the Churban, he had an uncle. His name was Hanamel. Hanamel was such a holy, great, and powerful person that Hanamel could control Malachim. And he brought down Malachim and commanded the Malachim to fight for them. And when the Bavlim saw that, they were all ready to go away. They were scared. So Hashem changed their names. So Hanamel couldn't control them. They hear what's going on. So he called another Malach and he told them to lift Yerushalayim up into the air so they can't get to it. It sounds like a fantasy, right? It's science fiction. This is eyewitnesses. And Hashem kicked Yerushalayim back down. So Hanamel felt he could call another Malach, and he built a wall of water and fire. None of it worked. None of it. on Zion of, finally, Amalek came down and put his feet on the Heichel of the Beis Hamikdash. That was the walls of the city. Put his feet on the and broke them, crying, "Let the enemies come into the house of the master, who no longer is inside." That's what went on the Churban. So listen to this. This is also from Yalkut. He takes it and he sums it all up. And he brings Chazal. He is Chazal. When Hashem said time has come to destroy the Beis Hamikdash, Omar Kozman Shani Besocha, as long as I'm in, my presence is there, there's no way they can touch it. I will conquer my eyes, so I will no longer see it. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is referred to as Einei Hashem Elokecha Ba Mereish Shana Ad Achri Shana. That's Eretz Yisrael. And he overcame his power of looking at Yerushalayim and taking care of Yerushalayim and taking care of Eretz Yisrael. And he looked away. And I took an oath. I won't come back until the time of the Geula. They came in, and they burned it down. I have no place here on earth. But it all belongs to me. Ella asalek shchinasi, Hashem Shechina, the perception, the clear perception that you're in the presence of HaKadosh Baruch Hu was taken away. This is us. I don't have to go into detail. I'll tell you what's going on. The world has gone berserk. And when the world goes berserk, it's because nobody is prepared to recognize the Goyim even. Open your eyes and just see what's going on. You do not see the miracles that are taking place. No one sees it. No one's looking. No one cares. What do they want? They want one thing. They want to be free of God. That's what they want. And everything that's going on in Europe, in America, in here, unfortunately, in Eretz Yisrael, there are people that are just not prepared to see. But in spite of all of that pain and all of that tragedy, when they came into the Heichal to set it afire, what did they find? The first place, the crew were hugging each other. Now, we know that that was a miracle in itself, too. What does that mean? Well, the Kruvim were made from a solid block of gold. Solid block of gold. They chiseled out Kruvim. Yet, when Klal Yisrael were not in the favorable in the eyes of Hashem, they looked towards the walls with their backs to each other. When they were doing Hashem's Ratzon, they were hugging each other. Hugging each other. So they looked at this and they said, "What? You're telling me you're so holy, you're so great, you're so wonderful, look what your God is doing. This is what he's busy with." That was the biggest Chilul Hashem. Kol roifea hizilua. Greyeha hizilu. All the friends, all those who recognized, they thought that they realized the Jews are something special, all of a sudden, they cheapened them. They shamed them. It was the biggest Chilul Hashem that possibly could be. Because of us. This was what we caused, this Chilul Hashem. This is what Jews do. They control this, and they do this, they do that. Welcome, welcome, welcome to the time of the Churban. You just think about it. This is exactly what Churban is happening. We think we have enemies that want to hurt us. We're making a terrible error. There's a churban going on here. And the churban that's going on today is the churban that was going on then because we don't want it to stop. Or there's not enough. Who wanted to stop? I shouldn't say this over. They made fun of her because they saw her immodesty. And Kol Oivea Hisigua, and all of her enemies were able to conquer her. Bein HaMitzarim. What's Bein HaMitzarim? Bein HaMitzarim, Meitzar means narrowing. Between the narrowings. What happens when you go through a narrow passage? You got a mountain on one side, mountain on the other side, very narrow. You have to go 1 by 1, 2 by 2, maybe 3 by 3, and that's it. You can't get through. You're stuck. And the enemy comes, and he can, obliterate you. That's the new word, by the way. Everybody talks about obliteration. They can obliterate you. What were the two? What's the Bein HaMitzarim? What mountains? What are we talking about? Say Chazal, Bein HaMitzarim. You know what? It's between the two great sins of Klal Yisrael. One is this Chet HaEgel, which was the cause of the breaking of the Luchos. And one is the refusal of Klal Yisrael to go into Eretz Yisrael, which took place on Tisha B'Av. So, between Shivasar B'Tammuz, with the breaking of the Luchos, and Klal Yisrael refusing to go into Eretz Yisrael, that is the two mountains on either side, mountain of sin, if you want, that cause what's taking place. And that's what we have to do tshuva for. Not because they did it, because we too are not yearning for it to leave. As a result of all of that, we went into Golus. What does Golus mean? Golus means you're not where you belong. Right? You have a home. You were thrown out of where you belong. Your home. That's what Golus is. And that's the concept. I'm sure you may have heard the term Shchinta B'Galusa. The Shechina is in Golus. What does it mean the Shechina is in Golus? The Shechina is not where it wants to be. The Shechina is not in Yerushalayim. The Shechina is not in the Beis HaMikdash. The Shechina is not there. Yes, there is a manifestation of it. But it's like the second Luchas compared to the first Luchas. We lost Yerushalayim. We lost the Beis HaMikdash. We lost so much. Oy. The name Yerushalayim is a composite term. Composite. Avraham Avinu said, Hashem Yireh, Asher Yomar Hayom, Bahar Hashem Yeroeh. Yireh. Hashem sees, we see, he sees, we're seeing each other face to face. And then the other half was named by Malki Tzedek. And who was Malki Tzedek? Melech Sholem. Malki Tzedek was Shem ben Noach. And he gave the name to the city of Yerushalayim as Sholem, Melech Sholem. Shem, he was Melech. Malki Tzedek, Melech Sholem. And Malki Tzedek was Shem. So Hashem takes the two and puts it together, and there's a sense of perfection, a sense of absolute beauty, Kimitzio, Michlal, Yofi, the beauty of Yerushalayim. Today, do we see the beauty of Yerushalayim? Or do we see a bunch of commercial stores selling all kinds of wares? Do we see it? I remember, I really do. I mean, I'm an old man, so I can go back 60, 70, almost 70 years ago. I could go back and remember what Yerushalayim looked like. You were awed. I mean, all right, probably if I would go back to Vilna, I'd probably see something like that too before the war, or wherever you come from. the Kedusha, the Torah, the Avoda, until we let go of it. The Chofetz Chaim wrote a book called Machne Yisrael. Machne Yisrael was a book for soldiers. Which soldiers? The Cantonists. You know who the Cantonists were? These poor little Bachrim, these Jewish little boys, 9, 10 years old, who were kidnapped and were conscripted into the army, into the Russian army. And of course, they were sent to schools and they were sent to training camp and the whole deal. And of course, what did they lose? Everything. All their Yiddishkeit. But he wrote a sefer for them, at least a little bit. And he wrote that for a tefillah for them. And he told them two things. Here's a tefillah that you should say when you go out to battle. And most of them knew that that was probably the last thing they would say before they died. And he put two conditions onto the tefillah. Condition number one, you have to face Yerushalayim. You have to face Yerushalayim. Because our tefillahs go through Yerushalayim, through the Beit today. And number two, you have to be absolutely sincere. You have to really, really want it. And that's what was the mechanism by which they were able to hold on somewhat, those poor little boys. When we relate to Yerushalayim of old, there was a book, I think, Yerushalayim of old. Yerushalayim of old, we relate to it only in our imagination, because it's not our reality anymore. But if we appreciate the things that we have lost, then maybe it becomes more than just an imagination. It becomes a yearning. We lost more than just the city and the Beis HaMikdash and the Korbanos and all the wonderful things. But we lost the power of Torah too. That, as a result of it, to be first one of the momentous sins of Klal Yisrael, the Chet HaEgel. We lost that power of Torah. We lost the power of Nevuah. All Nevuah came from the Beis HaMikdash. Every one of the Nevi'im that were misnabe within Klal Yisrael during the time when there was Nevuah came from the Beis HaMikdash. He spoke from between the Kruvim in the Beis HaMikdash, and that gave them the Nevuah. Yonah HaNavi, when he got the Nevuah to talk to Klal Yisrael and he ran away, it was in the base, he was in Ola Regel. It was the Ola Regel time. And why did he run away? Oh, because he loved Klal Yisrael. He loved him so much that he ran away from the Rabbeinu Shalom. So there shouldn't be a taina that if he goes to Nineveh and they do tshuva and Klal Yisrael doesn't do tshuva. And then we lost Malchus. Malchus kingship. And we, of course, I've said so many times, we have no idea what a king is all about. We've never, well, in England maybe a little bit, but that's just in the imagination. They think they have kings and queens and who knows what. A real king, the King HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the Melech Malchei Amlochim, that was the seat of Melucha. David, Melech Yisrael, all of that was there until the Churban. We lost Malchus. Malchus was the mechanism by which, through the Melech, obviously, there were good Melachim and there were not such good Melachim. We're talking about the ones that were Avdei Hashem. David HaMelech was called Avdei David. Moshe was called Avdei. Listen, that Malchus represented our participation, because a Melech is not a Melech unless there are subjects. We were a very, very powerful part of Malchus Shamayim, because we are the ones that were enjoined and took upon ourselves the responsibility to acknowledge Malchus Shamayim. And every melech in this world, and any Moshel in this world, the one who's in charge of this world is called a Moshel, a Moshel. And the president isn't a Moshel, even no matter what they say. Not a Moshel. The word, strange word, Moshel, is it not? But the word Moshel stems from obviously the same root as Mashal. Example. An example. What's the Moshel here? The Moshel is the Moshel of Malchus Shamayim. Because even when we had Melachim, it was difficult to relate to Malchus Shamayim. But when we had a Melech, then it became a little bit part of reality. The Melech. So Malchus Shamayim and Malchus Ara, the kingship here in the world. And this is what we rejected. We rejected that all. And it stemmed from our rejection from going into Eretz Yisrael. Now, let's stop and think for a minute. And this, the Stipler Gaon, Reb Chaim's father writes. He said like this. People want to know, how is it possible? How is it possible that the Jews said, we're going to go back to Mitzrayim. We don't want to go into that, so we want to go back to Mitzrayim. So everybody says, you hear of anybody saying, hey, you know what? I'm pretty miserable here. Taxes are high, and I can't make a living. I want to go back to Auschwitz. Huh? You think anybody would have said that? What are you talking about, idiots? What do you mean you want to go back to Mitzrayim? Nothing was wrong with Mitzrayim. It had to do with the Mitzrayim. The Mitzrayim were finished. They're finished. They're over. Now they were Mekabel Torah. They figured, okay, so we have a Torah. We're going to have to do the Torah. We can do it in Egypt too. That's what he said. That was the mashal that he used. Who would say you want to go back? Oh, yes. And they could have fulfilled the whole Torah there almost. But they chose not to. In the end, they chose not to. And they had to suffer a lot because they chose not to. And so what are they missing? A few mitzvahs of that are nogea te only Eretz Yisrael. Mitzvahs atluyos ba'aretz. That's the only thing that's a little bit that we're missing. So we'll do it all. No. They were prepared to go through all the difficulties of the Midbar till they reached Eretz Yisrael. This was our legacy. Their legacy, I should say, to us. This was what we're so crucially missing, is this actus that they had, that will do it. Okay, we got the message. It took a lot to get them to get the message, but okay, we'll do it. And they did, and they fought, and they tried. That's our job. Our job is we were one at Ma'aber Sinai. When we came into Eretz Yisrael, we were one. All of Klal Yisrael fit between the Badei Haluchas, Aron, the poles that were carrying the Aron. It's only 1.5 meters. Amma b'chetzi, it's less. All of Klal Yisrael stood between them. How's that possible? Well, leave it to Rabban Shloim. He can do it. But they all were together as one. That's what we're missing. We're missing that achdus. And we're missing the sense of it's the Ramah brings in a sefer called Torah Ha'oleh. The Ramah is a halacha sefer. But he rarely talks about, Yonim. But he tells over that when the Yirmiyahu was mourning over the destruction of the Beis Hamikdash, so Plato came along and found him crying. And Plato said to Yirmiyahu, they say you're a wise man. What kind of wise man cries over bricks and mortar? And what kind of a wise man cries over something that's finished and kaput? So Yirmiyahu says to him, "Oh, Mr. Plato, they tell me you're a pretty good philosopher. You must have some questions that you can't answer that you're stuck with. A philosopher has questions." So he says, "Yeah." And he gave him all his questions. And Yirmiyahu answered them one after the other. And so he said, "So you are a wise man. So why are you crying over bricks and mortar?" He says, "Well, I'll tell you. I'll answer the first question, but you, Mr. Plato, would never understand the second question. So I'm going to tell you the answer to the first question. And the answer to the first question is, I'm crying over bricks and mortar. Where do you think I got my wisdom from? It was those stones, that building that is no more. I shouldn't cry. And the other one, I'm not going to answer because you'll never understand it." So my Rebbe, Rebbe, said that he heard from the Alter of Kelm the answer to the second question. Why am I crying over spilt milk? I'm not crying over spilt milk. I'm crying what I'm missing now. It's now. That's the way we began. We began with Yaakov Weinberg teaching us that we're the ones. We're mourning not about what was, we're mourning about what we don't have. And that's the answer to the question that he asked them. We're not crying over spilt milk. We're crying because we want it back. And every tear, and whether it's a physical tear dripping out of your eyes, or it's a recognition. And I mentioned this before. It says that all the gates since the Churban were locked, except the gates of tears. Gates of tefillah were locked, except the gates of tears. You daven and you cry, it'll open up those gates. So somebody would say, "Well, every time I daven 3 times a day and I don't cry 3 times a day, so my tefillah doesn't mean anything. How can that be? I daven, I care, I really do. I want. So this I heard already from what Rav Moshe taught us, that the word crying, boche, comes from the word navoch. Navoch means confusion. Confusion. Nevuchim heim ba'aretz. They're confused. They're stuck. There's nowhere to go. Can't go forward. You can't go backward. You can't go around it. The bear trail. You're stuck. Good luck. That's what navuch. That's when you cry. You cry because you don't know where to go, or you can't go anywhere else. Now we know that tefillah with a tear doesn't necessarily mean that water is dripping out of your eyes. Tefillah with a tear means that you know there's only one place to go, and that's only with the Ribbono Shel Olam. You want to get out of this situation, whatever one we're in, you got to turn to the Ribbono Shel Olam. And what he does will ultimately be the right thing. And therefore you can cry. So our tears, and I'm not telling you to sit down and have to give kinnis we don't understand. You have to cry when you read the kinnis. You have to cry with a recognition when you read the kinnis. I don't understand. I don't understand the word maybe. But I know it's you, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's all I got to think about. Only you can save us. And when we do that, then we will be Zocha. That's our tshuva. That should lead us to correcting all the things that we all know in our hearts we need to correct. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu will bless us. And he'll bring the Gula Shleima even before Tisha B'Av. Have a wonderful week.
That's a good.
Bruchim to you. Bruchim to you. If you want to shut it off for me,
Thank you.
so
So much.
you're so welcome, ladies. My pleasure.